Hey everybody, welcome to Industry Giants 2017. My name is Brett Briley. I'm going to be one of the character guys on the panel along with Kevin Penrod, Brian Wynja, Jason Martin, and Adam May. Both Kevin and Adam work at Gearbox as a character artist, and Jason and Brian are character artists over at Gates Software. So we have a lot of talent in this room, so hopefully you guys appreciate it. I had everybody kind of put up on all portfolio reviews. How many of you guys actually brought your portfolios for review? Okay, so we got a fair amount. You guys, if you have your work on the phone, that's also a way to kind of show off your work as well in case you're because like I said, there's a lot of talent, a lot of experience. It's great to get good feedback. What I would suggest, if you guys actually, when you're talking to somebody, if you have something to write down those golden nuggets that they can throw to you, okay? Because if you ask 10 questions and they're giving you feedback, and you just go nod your head and yes, you're not going to remember any of it, okay? So we're going to get started. I'm going to introduce Kevin Penrod again. He's going to stand up. He's going to go through his work. It's going to be a really relaxed thing, guys. There's nothing, no pressure. You can ask questions during it if you want to. Just go ahead and interact. Use your voices, okay? Go up with us. Hey, Brett. Yep. Oh, yeah. That's all you need to say. Click with your full.
Hey guys, so I've been at Gearbox Software for maybe 9 years. I've been the lead character artist for about the past 5 years or so. I've been making games for maybe 10 to 12 years. So this guy was for our latest project, it's Battleborn. I'll just do it, kind of have fun doing a bunch of facial expression stuff for him, just to give our animators an idea of the character's personality. It's all done in ZBrush. Usually kind of just start from like a sphere, just sort of making a head. So I don't have it's more of like a skillful process to it. Another character from Battleborn, pretty like kind of a similar start out with a sphere, start extruding out body parts. I don't reuse a whole lot of base mesh stuff. I like to start kind of from scratch a lot. This guy was kind of fun. Little Mexican wrestler guy. Characters for that project varied a lot, but more of a kind of a like Pixar-ish, style, I guess. This is some older stuff from Borderlands 2, so I throw that in there because a lot of you guys probably know that game. More facial expression stuff from Battleborn. So actually not a used character, but I think this was actually, I'll just talk to these guys. This was from a class I did with a guy named Gio Nakpil. I'd actually highly recommend that class if you have a chance to take it. This was just kind of a sketch that I was doing just for fun, just doing a little zombie class guy. Some more Borderlands stuff. The texturing process for these guys is pretty intense. Necromancer from Borderlands. This is the full body of that first guy that had the facial expressions. That was like the main villain for our Battleborn project. That was just the texture in-game version.
That was too damn quick.
Yeah. That was it. Do you guys have any questions?
So what programs?
Questions out here, but anytime.
What programs were you primarily using for your the Battleborn?
All the high poly stuff, it's all done in ZBrush. Some of it I'll quickly sculpt it out if it's like a hard surface thing, and then I might retopologize it in like 3D code and maybe finish it max or something like that.
What was the name of the sculpting class? The guy?
His name is Gio Nakpil.
Okay, thank you.
Last name is Nakpil.
And he's amazing. Trust me, look him up.
Yes. Yeah. I think he works for Oculus now. He was the lead character artist at ILM for a long time.
Can you talk about some of the texturing process and some of the work and stuff that you do since it's so stagnant, the specific style and everything else?
Yeah, horrible texturing process really. But a lot of it, a lot of people are using Substance now. I still use Photoshop just because I like the control of it. But I'll start out this character doing poly paint and ZBrush, and then I'll bake all poly paint, and then just kind of refine it in Photoshop.
Yeah, how many of you guys have actually heard of Substance Painter, ZBrush? Okay, good, a little bit more match my ideas. I think all of us kind of use a lot of different programs. Usually our library is about like 5 or 6 different programs we touch upon. So if you have questions about those, any one of us can answer it, so just go ahead and don't be scared.
Actually, I paint a lot in 3D code too if I'm doing more stylized paint stuff.
How long will these take? Like specifically that?
Maybe like 3 weeks for the high poly, and then for the low poly, we actually outsource all the low poly stuff. So I'm just doing all the sculpting, and then I'll texture it for a week or so.
I'm starting to concept art and making like a character portfolio. Since I'm like mostly a visual concept artist or like illustration style, is it important to also have just like a portfolio when like starting off?
I mean, if you just want to go for concept, I would just usually focus on concept. But it's also it's good to understand 3D, and I think it's going to help with 2D as well. Like you can start with a 3D model and paint on characters.
So, would you say most of your work's in ZBrush?
Yeah, I'm spending most of my time with ZBrush.
You also have sensors and everything.
Anybody else?
So did you like design the character and sculpt it?
I don't design it, so I would work with somebody like her who would do like the concept for it.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll kind of work back and forth with it.
This is good, guys. You got a very talented character guy. Ask questions.
Do you ever design your characters? Like, do you do sketches or anything like that on your own?
Yeah, I do. Most of the time, we have a concept team that is doing it, but it just kind of depends. Some smaller stuff, I'll just concept it.
What's the workflow between a concept artist and a 3D modeler? Like, how do you guys, do you work with them to decide what's right for the character? Because I know there was one lady who worked for like Naughty Dogs, and sometimes she would try and design a character, and a 3D modeler would be like, no, that doesn't really work in 3D. So
yeah, so usually how I like to work is I'll get a pretty rough sketch, and then I'll start to kind of flesh that out, and then I'll pass it back to them and let them kind of work on top of it and solve that again.
just like concept back and forth.
Yeah.
So like, have you ever had anybody who was like a concept artist that also 3D modeled? Like somebody who was like proficient in like both?
It's been rare, but a lot of people do. Brian does it quite a bit. So it's good.
Yeah.
And Brian concepts a lot in 3D.
I just cheat. I just paint with a skull.
Yeah, I was never that good at drawing, so I was just like, I can just sculpt that.
It's all fun and games, but a lot of the concept guys, usually by the time they're done sculpting it, they don't want anything else to do with it because they just go things fast. So it is kind of rare to see. I mean, we were looking at some guy, I guess I can't say it, but we did concept painting, always stuff with bananas. But anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, it depends a lot. I'll show you guys too some film stuff because like in film that's a little more common, but I think in games, no matter what studio you're at, like the pipeline of creating a character has been so established for so long that yeah, things are improving. We're using Substance, we're using this, but it's no matter what, like how fast you are. Like a lot of us are. I know Brett's very fast and Jason's fast, but like nothing beats like pen on paper to get an idea down quick. Like no matter, like this is a lunch crunch, I did it in 45 minutes. Like Max could, in 45 minutes, fill a page full of these loose sketches that it just is kind of, it's work, so.
Yeah, it's usually established and stylized, you know, like you have a style that goes to the game, so you kind of pick it up, and the character artist kind of has to kind of emulate that throughout the final ones. I mean, I've worked with very few concept artists where I was able to work back and forth, like Ben Olsen, who's a great concept artist, who was on Doom 4, and then Rage helped out a little bit. He would draw the front of the guy, and then I would just pick up a lot of the detail and the flow that we had going from the front, and then he allowed me to kind of help implement the back to make it really
I heard a really good analogy the other day about the concept artists are the architects, character artists are the builders. It doesn't, and you have to work, just like in that situation, you work together. And as a character artist, usually the people are the ones that have to tell the concept guy, like, that's not going to work. You know, you got to change it here. And honestly, if you want the best character, the relationship between you and a concept artist is the best way. So you will work with them constantly back and forth, and it's never like just coloring in the lines. There's always like places you got to fill in the gaps, and it's the process working with it. Like in this industry, nothing's, it's not like your character's yours, spin through it, and you do it good, and it's the animated.
Yeah.
So the more collaborative you are, I think the more you get out of it. So it's a pretty fluid dynamic. I've never had any issues in that situation.
I think all these guys would say too, like you should never be able to, like, it really bothers me being in the industry for a while now when someone's like, this is my character, like this is, and especially if it's like for a project, like on Doom, we would be very conscious, never be like, this is my lost soul, because there was a concept artist that worked on it, there's a character model that worked on it, there's a character TD that worked on it, there's animators that worked on it, there's sound that went on it, so there's a handful of people that put work into bringing this character to life. So, we would be like, this is my contribution to Doom, or, this was a high poly model that I created for this character. It was never just like, this is my lost soul. Like I literally birthed this thing. It's like, no, this is a team effort. It took a lot of people to bring it together. And everyone has to be on the same page when making that character.
Yeah, I've actually had many characters that I didn't like that much, but somebody will animate it really well, and everybody will love it.
Yep.
Based on brings it alive.
Yeah.
That's super common, I think, because especially too, like as characters are getting more complex and we're spending more time on them, it's like this relationship that you were like really excited about at first, and then you're like, I really don't want to see this person anymore. Like we should see other people. And then by the time you get it out, and everybody's like, hey, that model looks good, and you're just like, don't talk to me about it. Like we're not talking anymore. But then yeah, someone animates it, and you're like, I'm really glad she's doing well.
Well, you are right. The schedules are ballooning out. Like nowadays, I spend way more time on characters than when I'm like, oh my god, this has got to end.
Yeah, the teams are actually like ballooning. I mean, it's still pretty relatively. Usually, the character teams are usually kind of relatively small. One with the concept, the animation teams are getting larger, and the environment, so it's one of the larger stuff on carpet. So usually, I tell students or people trying to get into our industries, bend more towards the environment kind of stuff. Work on the hard surface, because all of us do hard surface. And characters are kind of like a plethora of a bunch of shit coming together, and it's just like we have to know and jump around different skills. So it's not one. And I usually relate those to, the lead singer. There's only one lead singer pretty much, and then usually the band fills out a lot more. So all our industries are tough.
So yeah, I started out doing environment art to get into the industry, so I did that for a couple of years, and then was just doing character art at home, kind of taught myself how to do it.
Awesome. All right, thank you. All right, next up, Brian Wanya.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Go ahead,
I was going to say, all of us are, the reason I was kind of doing this character panel, one, for you guys to kind of interact with us, but it also, we all work in the same town, but we don't ever really kind of get together, and we're all representing. It's nice to have the talent come together. So if none of you guys showed up, I was like, let's grab beers later. Because we haven't had a chance to interact.
Yeah, I'm not prepared at all for this. I thought we were day drinking.
Yeah, that's what I did, so I apologize in advance. It's my fault.
So hi guys, my name is Brian Wanya. I'm a character artist at id Software. I've been there for 2.5 years. I came in at the end of Doom 2016. Before that, I was at High Res Studios for a little bit, Sony Santa Monica, Naughty Dog. I've kind of been around a few different places, but I like Texas, I like id, I like the guys I work with, so I think I'm definitely going to stay here for a while. A lot of the work that I brought you today, brought to show today, is going to be more of my concept work. Before joining id, I was kind of transitioning into more of a film role. Living in Los Angeles, it was pretty common for while I worked at Naughty Dog during the day, I was saving for a wedding, and I wanted to have a kid and all that type of stuff. So I was just like, man, Naughty Dog, takes care of us, but I need to do extra work. So I would do freelancing where it was I literally paid for my wedding, sculpting, doing digital sculptures of toys for Happy Meal toys and stuff like that. So someone has to make that stuff. So just as much as we talk about doing environment stuff, there was what was a Spider-Man Pez head is probably the most seen thing I've ever worked on. I should just bring that and be all right, kids, listen up. One day you'll be this successful. It is funny though, like someone posted it online, like when the new Spider-Man was coming out, they like posted it online being like, yeah, I just finished working on this. And it was the cringiest moment. So I was like, oh, I actually made that about 6 years ago. It's like, what? So I kind of wanted to show you a variety of the type of work that you can do because as a character artist, there's a lot of skill sets we have that can be essentially put into transmedia. And by transmedia, it's a lot of similarities and things. Someone told someone we said day drinking and people just started like,
There is no free beer.
yeah, definitely no alcohol.
Bring your own.
Yeah, BYOB, guys. So the cool thing is, like for me, like I started, I come from Atlanta, Georgia, and I was lucky enough that like growing up, like I'm 34, I grew up like loving monster movies, like basically like I wanted to be the Predator when I grew up. I guess that is not a legitimate job, so I had to start looking for something. And I remember seeing a show on television that showed Rick Baker doing makeup effects and like how he did the stuff for American Werewolf in London. Who does not know who Rick Baker is? Raise your hand. All right, you guys all have homework tonight. You have to go home and find out who Rick Baker is. And even Rick Baker, because he did, he did Thriller. I think one of his first movies he worked on was Exorcist with Dick Smith and stuff like that. And so basically I was like, I'm going to be a makeup effects artist when I grow up. And when I was in college, I went to Art Institute of Atlanta, Rick Baker started using ZBrush. Because like, an animation degree was like my fallback plan. I was like, oh, I'll just get a job at like Disney. That's just like my fallback plan. Like, in case this whole monster thing doesn't work out. And when I saw Rick Baker using ZBrush, and I saw that it was basically just digital clay, I was like, man, this is awesome. So anything that I can sculpt can be used for games, can be used for collectibles, can be used for concept work, can be used for VFX models. It just opened a lot of doors for me, and basically it just kind of fed my addiction of making monsters. So for example, this was for a film that is actually like in the process of getting funding. This is one thing with concept art that's kind of cool. Before joining it, I would get a lot of calls from directors that basically they had X amount of dollars to get concept art and models and like basically to put together what would be called a pitch package so that they could then go to Fox and Universal and all these bigger studios and being like, I have 15 grand to get all this work together to show you why I want you to give me $30 million to make this movie about a coked out werewolf. So this was for a film called House Mother, and he's got that like white hand on his face, and that's where like a witch cursed this kind of like alpha broed out dude. So, and literally the brief, like he gave me this whole backstory on it. I was like, okay, and it's like Teen Wolf on cocaine. And I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I know. Both. That is the only way to watch Teen Wolf. Yes. I like it. There's a few things in the back where are like, what is Teen Wolf? So I do a lot of personal work as well. I think it's, it's kind of like working out. I obviously, you can look at me, I don't know anything about working out, but I do a lot of personal work. So just wanting to get better, like, we were talking about, first I started environment, so I go home and learn character art and stuff like that. So for me, I have to be making something. If I was standing on a desert island, I'd be using like crab meat and coconuts to find a way to make monsters. So I think this was like a Friday and Saturday night. I called this guy like Pond Scum, so I just made some little weird creature. I just taught a class in Adelaide, Australia recently, and we wanted to come up with a design for a gremlin. I just love the idea of like a creature that hated technology, so we started exploring different bits of reference. One thing is when we're creating a character, especially as far as design goes, and then even when we're doing character art, if we're pulling reference, I try not to look at other concept art. So like for this gremlin, I didn't literally, I'm obsessed with the film Gremlins, but I didn't look at the gremlin. I didn't look at other concept art. I obviously looked at a lot of sharks. I looked at various types of dinosaurs. So you're pulling all of this reference from the real world, and you're not looking at inspiration. Like I didn't go to ArtStation and be like, all right, I'm making a gremlin. What is the popular shape of the day? And you can tell, I think that's a common mistake a lot of students make. Like we were literally counting at work like how many like biomechanical skulls with like red eyes would show up. And I think for like 6 weeks there was like 2 a day. And I just
take one. So
yeah. And it's hard not to, because like you get inspired. But like for me, I have a sketchbook. Like you should never have a moment of like, I want to make something, but I don't know what I should make. Like I have a sketchbook. Like you do sometimes. Like I feel inspired. I don't know what to do. I have a sketchbook that is just like there's pages where there's just like lists of stuff, and it's like, oh, cool. We're making a Wendigo tonight. If you don't know what a Wendigo is, I'm a giant nerd. Yeah.
I see Winnebago.
Oh yeah, make a Winnebago monster. Odd challenge. That's a good challenge. So these are some designs for a stop motion puppet. I have a friend that owns an effect shop in LA, and he wanted to do a stop motion character. So that's another cool opportunity. I never would have thought that would have been an like an avenue that ZBrush and sculpting and character art could take me down. But to be honest, it was super similar to making a character art for a game, because it even had a pre-built armature. So he was like, it essentially has a rig, and the model has to fit it. So it was like a literally old school foam latex model, and they did a 3D scan of it, and he was like, I want it to be updated, I want it to look like that, and I was able to use that scan data as basically a template and guidelines of like where I could push, where I could pull, like the fingers could only be so long, and where the jaw pivoted from because of the armature. And we have that a lot in games, where sometimes we'll make a new skin for a character, but it has to ride on the same rig and stuff like that. So this transmedia, there's so much that relates to one another. Color can change a character. I mean, literally all we did is at one point I got the note where it was feeling a little too feline. I was looking at a lot of pumas and stuff. So we kind of filled the split in the lip. And I went with like a more primate type color thing. And it's crazy just with a little bit of color how much difference you get. I like bugs. So this was designed for a short film called The Ningoya, which it's kind of like Indiana Jones meets X-Files type thing. So this was a character called the Fat Flea. So just a weird little bug. If my boss is here, so I can probably get away with talking about this, but like Jason had a ton of PTO at the end of Doom, and like I think they literally like made him use all of it. We're like, how long were you gone for?
Oh, like 4.5 weeks.
It was like gone forever. And then too, like we had finished Doom, and it was like R&D time, so like everyone was just kind of like hanging out, and like I used all my PTO. It's like everyone was gone, and I was just like, what am I supposed to do? So I was just like, all right, I'll be proactive, and I just made some weird cat dude one day. That was like a lunch break,
There's probably like 10 people in the studio at that time.
Dude, there was like nobody there. There was like just a security officer who just like shows up periodically. So this was another thing for House Mother. This was this thing called Cursed. In House Mother, it was like this kind of stereotypical like 80s film where like you had the growed out werewolf guy. So like, and then like this was for a creature. This was a creature designed for a girl who is she's like a sorority sister who's a bit more promiscuous. So basically her punishment is this is what she births. So basically we try to make it very sharp and painful because she basically gets like pregnant like immediately, where like shows up and it essentially like rips out of her and climbs out and all that type of stuff. Yeah, my wife was pregnant when I made this too. She like did not like. She's like, "What are you working on?" I was like, "Oh, there's this thing that like climbs out of a pregnant woman." She was just like, "Cool, I'm going to bed." Thank you. And then this was the next one where there was like 3 sorority sisters that were like. Basically, like, they kind of was like the girls from Mean Girls that were like always together and stuff like this. So this is called Sisters. So they basically got fused together. I don't know if I should really just be showing this stuff. It's pretty disgusting. Now that professionally, I look at it. Yeah. So because even the back of her was pretty gross, where it's like those like Russian nesting dolls where you pull one out. They're just basically like kind of like stacked on top of each other, but don't forget to get a breakfast burrito after this.
Yes, it's good.
I'm super inspired by, like I said, real world stuff. So for me, it's very like you can look at the stuff I did earlier and it's like, oh, that kind of looks like a puma mixed with a primate. I'm really into dinosaurs, like
a lot. Like it's probably too nerdy, I would say. Like there's multiple times that I just bring like a dinosaur model kit into work, and like they're always just like,
Nah, dude, dinosaurs are awesome.
yeah, and that's a cool thing, right? And like there's this chart.
For character art, dude.
Yeah, like
Awesome.
it's funny. That is like everyone's like, there's no secrets. That's bullshit. Dinosaurs are the secrets. Like especially if you're making monsters, because it's funny. Like when you make, I think what works about this piece, if I had to say anything, is like you haven't. It's somewhat believable. And what is believable is just the fact that I referenced dinosaurs and other prehistoric mammals, which like a lot of people aren't totally familiar with. But you're like, I can kind of see where it's like this and that. So there's like these believable elements where like a lot of students that are starting off doing concept stuff when I teach a class are like, all right, here's my, we're doing this kind of like Yeti, right? This big Yeti, and I put tentacles on him. And you're like, why does he have tentacles? And it's like, because it looked weird, it looked crazy, but I'm like, I don't think of a creature like a Yeti would really have tentacles on him, so it's kind of hard to believe, and that's kind of what is distancing it from, I think a lot of people think the finish is what's important, but especially as concept art, like you're getting paid for your ideas and helping grow something. You're not getting paid for a render, you're not getting paid for an illustration.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah.
That's a super valid point, especially if new students need to understand that. Like sometimes you gravitate towards you look at a rendered piece of art and it looks phenomenally, lighting, everything like that, and then there could be a napkin sketch or something that isn't finished. But sometimes if you gotta learn to develop your eye just to look at the design of that napkin sketch, it could be way far superior than something with covered in lighting and rendering. And if you ever wonder why sometimes we see monsters and stuff in movies that isn't so hot these days, sometimes it's because of those kind of situations. So design, there's a difference between design and final form, and then like that'll help you out a lot whenever you start figuring out how to actually go along. So what Brian said is really important.
It's huge. You guys should have been writing that down, because that was a big nugget. Because all of us, I think, basing something off of reality, anatomy of the stuff. Dinosaurs are based off anatomy. You build that up, and then you can kind of adapt off of that. But yeah, just a little touch of reality or something that's based on something that was or is key. So that's another gem. Like I said, I saw none of you guys write that down. But you said dinosaurs. I didn't bring my notebook. I'm gonna hope.
I don't write down anything Brian tells me.
Yeah, no, I will give you one nugget and then like 32 bits of horrible information. So,
I just
jokes on you guys, which is the right one.
I just ended up asking the same question 5 minutes later.
One thing I would say too with that note of like looking at reference, so when teaching design classes and then even too doing character art when you're pulling from reference, you always hear like with story, there's like 3 parts, like beginning, middle, and end. 3 is like such a powerful creative number for setting things up. Where like you have primary forms when sculpting a character, where you're blocking out the big shapes. You have secondary shapes where you're getting in and refining them, and then you have like third-degree details and stuff like that. The same goes, so I use 3 from like the beginning to end for everything, and even for gathering reference, where this guy there was a lot of triceratops, there was grizzly bear, and then there was it was like this weird site of a ceratopian thing. I can never. That's the only problem with dinosaurs is you can never pronounce half their names. But it was like some sort of ceratopian thing. And so when you take those 3 things and you reference it out, like let's say we do a wolf man. I think most people would be like, all right, wolf man, you're a dude and you're hairy and you have a wolf face. So it's like 50% man, 50% wolf. And that's been done before, but one way we can take that idea and make it fresh is like, what if we change those proportions and we start to introduce a third of something? So what if we did like 40% man, 40% wolf, and like 20% T-Rex? And that could be something as simple as, it's not like, well, okay, that means I'm gonna give them little arms, That 20% could be something as simple as like removing the lips, or like that 20% could be like an alligator, where there could be a textural element of like scale somewhere on him, and removing lips and his teeth are more alligator-like or something like that. So doing stuff with the power of 3 and changing those proportions to come up to your new ideas. I like how everyone's like writing stuff down. That's easy.
I tried it.
And it's like feels like, oh shit, are we getting past that?
32%.
This one is actually horrible information. This is job security for me. No, all joking aside, So yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to show you guys some more of the concept type stuff. This is very different from what I do at ID, as I work with a concept artist and I'm provided usually like a 3/4 drawing, and then it's my job, like Jason said, those are like architectural plans and it's my job to build it. But a lot of this stuff spills over into each other, this whole transmedia thing. The way I go about designing a character for a movie, and then when I would design a character for like a game when I worked at like Sony Santa Monica, we were on a new project, the process is the same, but the actual like physical process of sculpting and drawing and painting is the same. It's the thought process that's what different. We're like, for a movie, a lot of the times there's a huge focus on just the head and just the face, where it's basically the big payoff. But for example, like when I would design like a grunt character for a video game where you're going to see it a lot over and over and over and over, you got to be careful not to make things too repetitive. You know, like if we took like the imp in Doom and we're like, we got to give him a little character, let's put an eye scar on him. And then you have like 1,000 imps coming out that all have the same eye scar. You're just like, this dude gets around a lot. So there's different thought processes and like that when it comes to designing something for a movie and designing something for a game or a stop motion puppet. But the power of transmedia with ZBrush and these programs, you'd be amazed the types of opportunities it opens. So if you guys are having trouble finding character artwork, there's collectible work, there's concept artwork. Concept art is definitely probably, I would say, especially when it comes to 3D, it is one of the harder avenues to get in. Like there are not very dedicated spots for just a 3D concept artist. Those of you that are students that are concept artists, all I say is concept art is a language that you're speaking, and you're basically communicating ideas, and whether you communicate that with paint, Photoshop, pen, marker, macaroni art, I don't care. You're communicating an idea, and whatever you do that most successfully with, the better.
I would also say like Brian brought up a point, if you're having trouble getting the character side of stuff, I brought up environments earlier, but a lot of times I tell the students, well, why don't you do a rhino head that sits on the wall? Or why don't you do a statue? So you're pretty much showing character ability within an environment, a spot, and then you slowly grow, and then doing, all of us do competitions, that kind of stuff on the side. So
that's super needed as well.
Absolutely, it is, because there's some environment guys that get stuck with it, and the character team can't necessarily do it all the time. And then so you'd be running around the game with these nice characters in beautiful environments, and then you have this one statue that's not quite to the level that it needs to be, so it sticks out a little bit. And that's where you can find and get it.
That's a good point. Like, it's a good idea to focus on a lot of things. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, fortunately for us, who've been in like 10 plus years, I'd say the landscape's more difficult than it was when we came in. Not that it was like it just is different. There's a lot more companies. There's a lot more money. They're everywhere. There's jobs all over the place. It's a little bit few and far between these days. So as much as you can diversify yourself will help you out drastically. Now, there's also a catch to that. If you really want to be I just want to make monsters, and then you're dead set on that, there's nothing wrong with that. Just be realistically that when it's going to make it more difficult to get into that first job. But I mean, if you're dedicated to what you want to do, I wouldn't say don't do it. It's just kind of like, depends on your situation.
But if you're doing like 2 hours of a day, then do 20, okay? So it's just like, pick it up, because like the talent level that you're just seeing here in the room, it gets across the board, because there's so many talented people out there, so it's, well, as you said, job security too. It's just like, we're going to hold on to our jobs, so we're not going to give them up without a fight. So you really have to push yourself past the point and realize, don't compete against your fellow student, compete against us and other people that are trying to learn a job.
Okay, so I'm Jason Martin. I've been in the industry a little bit. I started in 2005 doing some ring-getting stuff. Nothing significant. My first real gig was at Blur Studio. That was like being thrown in the deep end of the pool, but I'm very fortunate to work there. I work with a lot of amazing artists that basically, it's almost like learning all over again. The school's awesome, and I'll never dog it because you learn a lot of fundamentals, but once you go to your first job, that's when it's kind of like, you have that foundation and you get to learn all the really nitty-gritty stuff. So after Blur, that was a weird time where games were kind of catching up, because that was more of a film, hybrid film cinematic environment there. And then I got interested in games, especially when things get so high res around 2011. And I had a child in LA, and that becomes near impossible. Anyways, we used to live there. So I had some people at ID. I used to work at Blur, and so I came out and visited. They sold me on Texas, and I love it here. I've been here ever since, and you haven't dragged me out of here.
Anyhow, so I have a mix of, I'm glad that Brian got here to show his conceptual side of things. I have a mix of images that are my own designs and then also production. I think there's also a lot of mixed messaging with character art coming in these days. I think you see a lot of people doing their own stuff and like it might be confusing which way to go. And also ArtStation, which has become the dominant thing. I love ArtStation, but it's also like shotgun approach of like blast and stuff. And it's a little bit difficult to stand out, especially if you're new, but it's not impossible. But if you're ever, like Brian mentioned this, but there's a lot of avenues you can kind of go with these kind of things. And don't think you have to do your own designs. I like doing my own designs because doing a designer on your own helps you at your job. Because you're in a situation where you got to fill in the blanks of concept carry, you got to design a little bit here. So that hybrid workflow is really good. So a lot of us at work, and Brian's a great example, but he did a lot of 3D concept stuff, and he's in a full production job where we work with all the concept artists. But there's always plenty of room to bring your zazz to it, because what is conveyed on 2D, you're the person that brings that into the game. And the cool thing about it is you're the last person that touches that to the consumer. So that's all you, and most of the time it's all you. We rarely pass models around unless it's a weird situation, like somebody's not there, but it's pretty much ownership on characters to the end of the pipeline. So there's food for thought there. I mean, but I always like to do my own stuff at the house. So I have a mixture of images and stuff I did. I did this, it's crazy, it's 4 years old, for a Seagraph demo back in 2013, I believe. And this guy here, I just want to do a barbarian character and just see if I could break ZBrush with polygons and just try and get as much detail as possible in there. And that was my main goal. I just wanted to see how far I could push things. And you can't really go wrong making some of any kind of old dude with a bunch of armor and stuff. It's just fun as hell. I love making fantasy stuff. You just do all kinds of cool images. You should. But this was done. I remember. A little bit of poly modeling, but usually the poly modeling was rough and I sculpted over it. I was trying to wrap my head around like dynamic stuff. That's also a good note. A lot of times whenever you see student stuff, every time you see like a new thing that comes out, you like jump on it, which is awesome. I love that. Like, especially when you get new people in the studio. I'm like, I learn stuff from interns sometimes. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Somebody showed a manual showed me a couple things. I'm like, yeah, I do that. No, I immediately gave him the credit, but knowledge comes from anywhere, and it's always good to get into it. But the one thing that's funny is sometimes in a production environment, you can't change up your pipeline on the fly. So I remember at the time I was like trying to wrap my head around hard surface stuff, so I just did some rough polygons on this and sculpted the rest of it. This is Batman I did. I know, yeah, I did. Everybody does Batman, but this is supposed to be a Batman Goon mashup, but I never put the wrench. I don't know if anybody knows what the Goon comic is. If you don't, you're missing out. It's awesome. It's an awesome comic. So it ended up being a little bit. I mean, I'm a big fan of Frank Miller's version of Batman on this guy, but he was supposed to have a pipe wrench that I never finished to put in there. That would probably confuse anybody that wouldn't know what the hell Goon is. So it's basically people think it's the Frank Miller Batman, which it is, but that's actually the Goon's face. That's why it kind of looks ridiculous. I love doing random stuff like that. If you're bored of something like that, I remember when I made this, I was like, yeah, I want to make a Batman, but it is Batman. What if I just throw in with, like Brian said, concepting something with like a wolf, T-Rex, something like that. Throwing those things together, like those combination things, are a big deal. So it sounds like I'll throw in the Goon for a twist.
That's how that makes it Jason's Batman. Yeah. And it's not like just one of the other thousands of Batman.
There's nothing wrong with doing that too. It's actually kind of every once in a while, like it gets through phases. I remember back in the day there was like Hellboy was one of them. Everybody made Hellboy. Then it was the Hulk. Then Batman came along.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I did a Batman. I think Did you ever do a Batman, a Hulk, or a?
Did a Hellboy, but.
Okay. All right. So Batman, Hulk. Okay. There you go.
Hellboy's cool too. I thought about it. I'm just gonna wait till it dies.
I saw a thread on Facebook this morning where a character artist was like, said about the new Hellboy, post your Hellboy sketches, and like it just started filling up immediately. Like people were just sitting on it, like, yep.
Yeah, like back like 06 and 07, that was Hellboy was the king of this too, man.
Yeah. So funny.
And this was all ZBrush. This is a dragon concept, guys. There actually is a whole other part of this dragon, but I got burned out real quick. I don't know. Okay. I don't know if this But like I just basically, after doing that many scales by hand, I went into.
Yeah, they turn mesh part.
Yeah. Like there's some cool new features in ZBrush that will probably make my life a lot easier, but this was a couple years ago. Another thing, when I do my own personal stuff, sometimes they're rough, sometimes they're sketches, but this is actually, I spent some time on this. This wasn't like an evening or anything. I always try to just pick something that I'm struggling with or want to push. Being an artist is a journey. You're never ever going to be like, hey, I'm done, I'm awesome. It never happens. You're always going to struggle, and like, hopefully every 3 or 4 years of work, you look back at your work and you're like, oh, that doesn't like, you want to feel that way, trust me. And I'm never happy with a character. Here's another line I like to use: is a character is never done, it's just due. Seriously, you could have somebody give you 6 months to model a dragon, and give you 6 days to model a dragon. 6-day dragon is going to look as good, but I could, it doesn't matter how much time you give me, I'll just keep making it better, keep making it more interesting. But my main focus on this was like third-degree details, just trying to push what I could do in ZBrush. I wish I have like 4 like irons in the oven of like personal work I worked on. If I had more time, I wish I had some of those ready. But yeah, making a dragon is challenging. There's a lot more. Once you do that much and you have a body,
You gotta zoom out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, this is Windows 10, right? Yeah. Every meeting at work we struggle with.
I know.
This is just a keyshot render to the same guy. I just like messing around with keyshot, which is also a fun experience. But I'd like to take a moment to talk about keyshot, especially to you younger students. Keyshot is an awesome thing, but don't rely on it. Like, I think the best way to do it is don't jump in and out of it like a bunch, because keyshot is amazing, but it should be more of like the icing on the cake kind of deal.
Don't hide behind a fancy render.
Yeah.
I think I always talk about
It's a true concept as well. Like I see that all the time.
Yeah.
If you have to render it in order to make it look good, then you probably need to revisit the concept itself.
Yeah, like every step of the way, it should be looking cool. Like when you get the concept, everyone should be excited about it. Even when you do the proxy, it should be like, oh, that's going to be cool. And then when it's in ZBrush, like we have Peter Boehm that works with us,
who's amazing.
This dude is. Yeah, dude. And
well,
like
he's all site.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
So this Peter Boehm, like every time he shares a post, like in like his thread, like in Slack or whatever, you're just like, holy crap.
He's also
look him up, guys.
Dude, seriously, he's one also those rare breeds that can concept just as good as a good model.
Yeah, he's in Germany and he's afraid to fly, so but I'm surprised.
He actually came out for a week.
I saw him. I was like seeing a unicorn in the wild.
How many of you guys heard of Polycount? Okay, a few of you guys. Okay, that's some of the older ducks. So that's where like a lot of us used to go and dump until a lot of people. That's where Peter used to drop. And then Mr. Kite. I don't know if anybody heard.
I don't know his real name.
Andy Tisbett.
Okay.
And so, but it's like
Andy Tisbett.
Yeah,
he's underground guy.
Yeah, he's underground. But it's like all these guys would just constantly blow you away kind of stuff, and then you're like, I want the next one. It's almost like
they're the unicorns.
Yeah, I've never seen him in the wild.
He's also like just the coolest down to earth guy. You know what's funny? He's actually so self-conscious about his work that he was worried that his stuff wasn't. I laughed.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite CG artists guys. Like he's definitely my top 5. He's just brilliant. And like he couldn't have been a cooler dude.
Yeah.
Like I was just not that I expected him not to be, but like he's such a nice guy. Stupid talent.
Peter Boehm.
If he wasn't such a nice guy,
Bohne.
yeah. If he wasn't such a nice guy, I'd find a way to like steal his soul or something.
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, you're nice. We were planning to like figure out how to extract your talent while you're here. Here's a skull study I did, and rendered this in keyshot. I just wanted to pick. Sometimes it's a good example of what you can do if you limit your scope. So I was like, how about just do a skull, but then take like a week and really detail the living shit out of it. And it's an anatomical. I mean, I took some liberties. It's evil. You don't have to use necessary points and stuff here. And I just wanted to have fun, focus on something simple that was dealt with anatomy and focus on detail. And like every once in a while, it's a good idea to do these kinds of things because it limits your scope. It doesn't. You don't have to like. If I did the whole skeleton, by the time you did this, you're like, oh god, I got the rest of it. But just limiting something like that, it's just a fun little exercise.
Can you talk to them about teeth? Like we always have this huge talk about teeth. Like I think that's a super valid point, especially like when monster making or
I hope I have. I think we're gonna see the image of teeth, but yeah, there's some of this. I have a couple pet. I would say pet peeves with things I like. Like teeth are really something that I like. When you see them done really well, and it's kind of hard to explain. Like I see some. Brian talked about this earlier, like going back to the source of stuff. I like being inspired by other people's 3D arts and styles and stuff like that. But when it comes down to making stuff, I go to the source of things. And me and Brian are huge 80s movie nuts. Actually, we have a manual where he's 22 that doesn't know half the. He didn't know who John Candy was.
We're like, did you see Jaws? He's like, that's the one where the lady stabs the shark. I was like, you haven't seen Jaws?
But anyways, like I've been really, me and Brian just geek out on movie effects stuff, and like one of the other great sources of stuff I look at all the time is actually like true movie sculptural stuff. And also real world, but you're actually seeing like handmade sculpture with good lighting. You can get a lot of good info on that, man. I've just been using Pinterest like crazy and plugging stuff in like that. And by the way, if you don't have a Pinterest account, just look up Brian. He has an extensive one. I use it all the time.
It's not just about mom's like cookie recipes. Pinterest is amazing.
Yeah, for collecting images.
Dude, yeah, that's literally my morning routine. Is every morning when I come in, I grab a cup of tea, and there's probably a good 10 minutes of like just looking at Pinterest.
And dude, honestly, like Pinterest is so good that I prefer that over Google searches.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
ArtStation, everything.
Yeah,
it just is so good at finding whatever the hell it is.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Great.
It's kind of like that YouTube spiral where you like click on one image, and then it'll list like 50 other images. That's like, you like that picture of an alligator skull. What about this?
Honestly, so that's what you can do because each time you have a character, a new character, for wherever, it doesn't even matter if you're doing it for a job or your personal stuff, you're going to get reference images and just start creating boards in there, like armor, amphibians, blah, 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 and slowly go to it. Or you can just steal a bunch of images from Brian's collection, which I do all the time. I don't have like a reptile thing, I'll cruise to Brian's, I'm like, oh, that's sweet. Save.
I think they should be limited though, because I know you have like 14 Pinterest boards, and like I'm obsessed with Pinterest too. It's like a YouTube effect. So like you think like there's like a limit where you should just like kind of cut down on the like inspiration.
Well, you know what? Here's how I do is to just I think you should be like, if you split the categories out so much, you probably drive yourself crazy. So like mine are like, I have some, but they're pretty basic. It's like I have mammals, reptile, hard surface, fasteners, 3D concept art, illustration, cloth. Try to keep it in there. It's easier for you to manage, you know what I mean? So like,
I think, categorize, because I had one that was like just art and inspiration, and it just started like growing. It's like, what was that? And now I have one that's like sculpture, make-em effects, concept art, stuff like that. But then like mammals, arachnids, insects. So, and that's super helpful. So like when it came to like designing that curse, that big spider-looking thing, it was like, I'm going to the arachnids folder, I'm going to the crustacean folder, and just, so it wasn't just like going to Pinterest and just having this like wall of like everything. Yeah, just being organized. Yeah.
I'll usually take something like Pinterest and I'll pull out all the images I like and put it on one inspiration board. So if I'm making a character, I usually have a board of everything stuff.
Yep.
That's just the same skull, just right out of ZBrush. And like the teeth thing Brian talked about before is we just like to try to get as much crazy variation in teeth with the art. This is a quick. I don't do a lot of cartoony stuff, so I wanted to do something for this, like the ZBrush Summit 2 years ago, and I just focused on using nano mesh for weird, obscure details that you wouldn't think like that on this whole body, like the bumps and stuff is actually crazy nano mesh applied onto the surface and whatnot. And I just want to try something different. Finally, I got some game art. This is the Cyber Demon from Doom 2016, and this was pretty fun. This was a collaboration with Hugo Martin, our art director, and I worked with Hugo pretty much my entire time. We worked together, and it did. So this was under very tight deadlines too, but we pulled it out. And we also triangle count wise for the guys interested in game stuff. This was about. He was a boss, so we got 45. That was still low at the time. I'm like, not really. Which was challenging. The reason why is we were 60 FPS and they didn't want to work with the LED system for other tech-related reasons. But I had a lot of fun making this, and that was very, very much a collaborative effort between me and Hugo. This is Doom Marine. I sometimes go back and forth. This is poly modeling. I do hard surface and ZBrush too, but like there's a I want to revisit that again. My general rule of thumb with ZBrush and hard surface versus poly modeling is how close you're going to get to it, because it's hard to retain fidelity the way you want. Like, so we knew the Doom Ring was going to be up close, so I was like, all right, I got to do this all completely in traditional polygon modeling. But that's also something with R8. I haven't got a chance to really get into R8 or stuff, but I want to take some time in the next couple weeks to really dig into it, because that might be. I'd like to personally just model in one package. It'd be great if I could use that. But I'm looking forward to diving into that, and hopefully it'll solve. Maybe it'll solve most of my issues. Because poly modeling, you get the most control. But man, I have been doing it for years, and I have to consider myself to be very efficient, but it can take a while. It's just how it is. But you do have the ultimate control, and it's I don't know. So R8's got a lot of cool features that I think might fix that with lattice stuff and all that, but I gotta dig into it.
Did you start out with the skeleton and poly model on top of it, or?
Yes, I did do that with him. I did a couple of rough blockouts. That's a good point. Sometimes I poly model something, I'll do a really, really crude sculpt to work out some lines and panel lines and just how things are going to work. And the face, I'm not allowed to show the face, it's mysterious, so that's about as much you're going to show. Of course, that was ZBrush, but the rest, everything else was but that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of times if I'm going to do anything, I always start with a rough sketch and kind of like, and build it out on top of that. And when I say build out, I don't necessarily have to re-topologize it. I just rough it out and then bring it back into my thing and build like a proxy underneath it. Real quick workflow method for anything like this. Usually our job is we do a rough proxy of a character. So we have a day or hard surface guy that came would be a little bit longer, but if it was a monster, we could bust out a proxy like in a day. Then we throw that to animators and stuff to make sure it works, and then we build on that later on. But yeah, generally like on this dude, I did like a real crude sculpt. Basically for size reference, they threw that in the game and designers and see how that reads, and like, okay, cool. Then I started building out chunks of the pieces up the way. And now I'm getting more Doom related work. This is the Hell Knight. If anybody played Doom 3, this was our one nod we wanted to give to Kenneth Scott's version of Doom 3, which I was stoked to do because everything else we kind of went back to 1 and 2, but we definitely wanted to give one nod out to the Doom 3 fans. I had a lot of fun to work on this guy. And we also had extremely low triangle counts compared to nowadays, so it was definitely like getting blood from the stem, but I think it worked out. It's just a quick turnaround, all ZBrush. This is more of a sketch thing I was doing for a class that needs to be finished, but it's supposed to be just a troll character dude. I want to focus on personality, but this was just ahead of it. It needs a lot more work. Hopefully, I got a couple things that I never have finished. I want to get those out there. Free time's a hard thing. This is the Pinky from Doom. These are all ZBrush with keyshot renders. I don't have the easy game stuff here, minus the Cyberhuman deal. That's all ZBrush. This was a wolf zombie werewolf thing that I did when I was still at Blur that ended up in Elder Scrolls cinematic. I can't take credit for the hair, somebody else did all that stuff, but I'll make a zombie werewolf any day. I like monsters, that's another reason why I came to it. And that's it for me. You guys got any questions?
I have a question about timelines. This question is actually for everybody. What's the typical timeline start to finish for a character model for you? And what's the expectation, typically in the industry for finishing something like that?
It's funny you say that because it's really changing right now because the schedules are getting a lot longer than they used to be, and it seems kind of crazy. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I've got that much time, and then I'm finding that I'm struggling to get that done. I've been doing this for a long time. So as games get more complicated, they're just taking longer and longer. I mean, we were just joking around earlier. One thing that's taking forever these days, it's crazy and I hate it, is low polying. Now that we're in the 80,000 to 100,000 range characters, low polying those things, dude, it can take like over a week.
Yeah.
And they used to do this in like 3 days, and it's just pure labor.
And a lot of people still think it still takes 3 days, but it's like you're pretty much tripling Your body count for your whole thing.
And
your
fire.
Yeah, like organic monsters a little bit easier, but if you're dealing with a guy with armor, holy cow, dude, it takes forever.
And a lot of what we have to deal with is that for us to deal with the animator, we talk about how we were dealing with concepts. This is where we shift over to deal with the animator because you're talking about the rig. But for character guys, we have to actually make sure our loops and how well it bends and where it's going to connect and all that stuff on the rig, and we're limited by bone count and so on. So all the technical stuff that's coming into it.
That's actually, I mean, you brought up a good point. It's funny, like as now that meshes are getting more denser and stuff like that, back in the day, we had to care less about, it was actually before my time. I've been in games for 6 years, but before that I was at Blur for 5. But that actually comes into play now more with low poly stuff, that I'm finding people that don't have the experience, because you have to have loops, and you have to know where it needs to deform. Your reader at your studio should help you out with this. It will be like, hey, just give me this here.
Yeah.
But after a while, you'll know how to pretty much land it for them, where rarely they gotta be like, hey, and even if they need an extra loop, I'm like, sure, I'll throw it in there. But as they get, and that's why I went into games. As working in cinematic and film, I saw that gap was thinning, and I felt like games would just seem more interesting at the time. So that's why I made the jump. And they're basically like, I look at what I did at Blur in like 2006. Those meshes aren't. I mean, of course we subdivided them, but the meshes themselves were probably about 120,000 piling on before they're subdivided, of course. But if back in the day, you got 2006, a game mesh was like well over like 5,000, 6,000 prior. I'm guessing.
And they're like, make it look like a million polys.
Did you have any creative liberties while redesigning any of the Doom 1 and 2 monsters?
Okay, that's actually a really good question. Yeah, I worked a lot with the guys. It was a collaborative effort, and that was insanely challenging for any of us, because these are kind of things that we grew up with. You know, that I grew up with at playing Doom, and you want to please the fans, but let me tell you, Doom fans are militant, loud people on the internet. So you have to take some. We have to take some chances, but we also want to go back. So we spent a lot of time on those characters. Just that Pinky, I modeled that like it was the whole summer of like 2 years.
That's probably your longest character.
I was going crazy. I mean, but we had to get it. It wasn't looking like it needed to be. So in our iconic characters, we had to like spend a lot of time. As far as Liberty goes with me and a concept artist, yes, we do. Here's how I look at it. Like, we'll get a concept for a concept artist. Sometimes it's not enough information there. You're an art director. You will be like, you got to fill in the gaps here. I'm like, I got this, no problem. It's not like we get orthos each side, fill in the blanks, like your color. You know what I mean? Like a character artist has to plus a concept. You have to be able to fill in the gaps and then build up more, because the concept artists can't get everything right. Their main thing is to get the basic, convey the thing, and then you make it look like that and better. You just want to avoid like adding too much to it that breaks the design. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, if the character has simple questions, if the character's got 2 legs, if you make it a quadruped, what are you fucking doing? You know? Your art director's gonna be like, what's up, you know? But there are times, it's like, you know, that you're gonna run a situation where they're short on time or whatever, and that's why I was saying, like, at work I'm an artisan, but I'm a craftsman. I'll build something that's based off a concept, and I bring my own style and stuff to that. When I go home, I do my own stuff, so I like doing that. And when you do your own personal work based off of your own ideas, that helps you be able to do that. Because I've seen character artists that struggle with filling in the gap. Like they can create that concept, but they don't know like where to put things in it to make it better. And I think that's where character artists get the room to shine. And I like both. You know, I mean, like for me to design things on the fly, it takes me longer because it's not my background. So when I for instance, I go home and I do my own stuff. It just takes. You know, I'm not doing it every day. I'm not doing iteration. So I cut my teeth at home doing my own personal stuff. So like all the first images that's my own stuff I do on my free time. So if you're trying to get in the industry, if you're trying to be a character artist, there's more. Brian said it. There's way more jobs available in the production side of things. But don't think that doesn't mean. I mean, work with a concept artist is a back and forth thing. And there's a lot of times they design things that don't work in 3D, and that's our job. The analogy of they're the architect and you're the builder. If you think of how they work, you know, the architect's going to show up every day and be like, why isn't it like this? And be like, hey, asshole, like this didn't, because you can't put a pillar here. Like, how's it going to work? Like, that's our job to decipher between the two of those things. And there's plenty of room to get the love back and forth. And honestly, if you want to get a job in the industry, there's more jobs in the traditional sense. And then you can always cut your teeth in that. Just because now, one thing before I got off stage, I see that a lot. Because our station is also, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's a lot of kids doing I think there seems to be a trend, maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of people I think they have to be concept 3D guys to get a job, and that's totally ridiculous. I would focus on a traditional pipeline for games, get in there and do whatever. But again, if your goal is, I absolutely want to be, I want to do concept, I want to do 3D thinking, you can still do that. You're going to have a harder approach to get there and less jobs. So it just depends on how much what you want to do. That's the most important thing.
Have you ever run into something you're like, this is not going to give you a job, like you're pursuing it and working on it, but it's not actually applicable?
Oh, like it's like you have a bad design you have to make that's not going to get you a job?
Something like that. Like you're encouraging, like, make sure you're doing 3D if that's what you do 2D if that's what you do. Is there anything that's just outdated and you're like, don't waste your time on that?
No, no, I don't think so. I mean, it's going to be a little overwhelming. The one thing I will say about character art is, can we touch? I'm jealous of concept guys. They're in Photoshop. Man, animators, they're animators. Their technology hasn't changed in years. If you get into character art, there's a bazillion programs.
Every time I go to a new studio, like having jumped around, it's like, all right, guys, we're using Topo Gun. You're like, okay. And there's always for me like 3 days of like, shit! Shit! And then I'm like, dude, I love Topo Gun. I can't have it. And that like substance for me is literally like, I came in his office the other day and I'm like, I get it now. Like I dig it.
By the way, substance is such a game changer, and we're just now getting a hold of it. But it's like, for anybody that's been doing this for a while, the fact that you don't have a PSD file at the end just seems so sacrilegious. Like it's like, this is bullshit. I can't trust this. But it is the future. There's some still stuff that drives me nuts about it, but there's no getting away from it, man. That thing's like here to stay. I still do a little Photoshop sometimes, but it's only because I'm in a hurry and I don't completely know substance as well as the other guys. But down the road, I see that changing for sure. One other thing I wanted to say about don't get too overwhelmed with programs and stuff like that. I think the one thing that I see new students that don't do is you still should know a traditional 3D package. You have to know that in games. If you don't, you're gonna have a hard time. A lot of people jump in ZBrush. You're lucky. I hadn't known it exists when I got it back right day. It's good to know. I would say right now, if I was starting out, learn substance, but no Photoshop. Understand materials. Don't just count on substance. You need to understand how you do set up your materials. I see a lot of young kids that just, this is metal, this is whatever. If you understand what's going on, that's a whole other thing though. You can ask me afterward. I don't want to take any more time talking about that, but focus on the basics. Don't get overwhelmed with programs. Like if you're starting out, like I would focus on like anatomy form, making pictures in ZBrush, stuff like that. It's just easy and blah blah blah. I wouldn't be worried like I have to fucking know Marvel's designer right now. You know what I mean? Like, and even if you do, that's another thing. Learn how to sculpt cloth.
Yep.
Don't depend on that. It's awesome, but if you know fundamentals, actually, I'll wrap up with that. Fundamentals, everything's most important. I still go to lectures that just talk about fundamentals. Even though I've heard it a million times, it always comes down to the fundamentals. I feel like he was just possessing my body right there. He always says the same thing. But I don't want to take any more time, so okay.
So how do you think, or can you describe like how many, or kind of what's a rough estimate of like how many concepts or like kind of these renders you have to do until you kind of get a word text and like I know how to workflow, how much you usually do before you get that like final render for that final design?
It's usually concept is doing that and back and forth and whatnot. Hey, I did real quick. I remember somebody asked me like timeline, how long does it take a character? There's very like crazy. Like if I'm getting a single manifold creature, I can knock that out no problem. But if I get like a super heavy, I'm working on something else that's all kinds of, I can't really talk too much about it, because it's all over, hard surface for days, that's going to be excessive, like massively longer. So back in the day, what took us usually, I would say roughly with Doom 2016, some of the monsters were 2 months, sometimes it would go over 3 months, but that wasn't the character artist's fault, it was because some of the characters are iconic and we wanted to keep changing things. But like the schedules now, I feel relieved because I'm finding out talking to other students, something the same thing, they're getting bigger. But I would say, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, with a single manifold creature, we can usually do those. My single manifold is just like a monster without anything hanging on its body like him or something. We're like 2 months-ish, you know?
Yeah, 2 months was like one thing, but like I've been on a character for 5 months right now. And then too, like we were talking about Naughty Dog. You looked at like their seniors and leads on the last Uncharted game, and those guys have 2 characters that they made. 2 characters that they made for the course of that entire game, because not only are you doing one character, but it's like
She's got a costume change. She looks dirty. What happens if she gets punched in the face? What happens when she cuts her hair?
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of stuff going on the back end of things. We do a lot of gore, so there's gore attached to all that. If there's things, well, it's more complicated it gets, the longer it's going to be.
Yep. We generally estimate about 2 months per character. Usually, if I sit down with the character artist and look at a concept, they'll say 1 month, and then I'm like, okay, so 2 months.
Yeah,
that's a very good point too. Being young, I learned how to blur. Same thing happened to me. I was like, I can do this in 3 weeks, and my boss was like, hey, yeah, it's taking 6 weeks. It's always going to double that, and because you can get something. Like, the last 10% of making a model will still spend probably more than the first 90%, but anyways, that's my stuff. We'll be here to answer questions later. I just don't want to take up too much time. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Adam May. I work at Gearbox Software as well. My story is similar to these guys. I started off actually going to school for film. I wanted to make cinematics for Blur, actually. And Blizzard and everything was making all the cool stuff that I wanted to. And then ZBrush came along. And I realized that I could do pretty much the same stuff I was doing for film for games now, which was that I could do a whole lot more of it and have a lot more fun with it. So a lot of this stuff is older. I've been working at Gearbox for a while now as art director on projects we haven't announced yet. So a lot of this stuff is actually probably, boy, how long ago did Borderlands 2 come out? 2013. That's 5 years ago? 6 years ago? Yeah, that's probably like 5 years ago now, so I think that's about the newest of this. Actually, so I went to school at the Art Institute. My first job I took at a small game studio out of New Jersey, working on what was the 4th worst rated game for like 2.5, 3 years on the 360.
What was the name of that studio?
It was Fusion Interactive.
Was that the same one that like Z Jones and like Rich Diamond were at like earlier?
No, it was a game published by Midway. It was like a World War II game. They wanted to bite out that Call of Duty craze that was going around. So they hired us, and I just went through. The only way you heard of the company or ended up at a job there was I just started going through like game websites, and anything that had like a decent rating on their games, I was like, oh, I'll apply there. Why not? Applied everywhere, finally got a job at that place. And literally the entire studio, only one person had ever even made a game before. So it was a whole lot of fun, learning like Unreal and everything together, but we were all a bunch of inexperienced dupes that just like made cool art. So this was actually the first thing we ever made in the new style of Borderlands, whenever from Borderlands 1 actually. This was something that we had a guy who was actually doing our UI at the time, Scott Kessler, who's currently art directing over there. But he had a giant sketchbook of just really cool but super graphic art. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with his work, but it looks very similar to like graffiti, real urban, like flat and super detailed. It was totally designed. He always had amazing designs. He really doesn't render much of anything, but it was a really cool challenge for us trying to figure out how to make those work in 3D, and that's where our job really comes in, is figuring out how to take things that might not actually work properly in perspective and depth, and then just figure out how to fill out those gaps. So the way I think of 3D is kind of like drawing the same thing, but from every single angle possible. So, this was a character you probably recognize. This was actually early on when we first figured out what our models wanted to go like. So like I said, so many different people end up touching your art. This was actually textured by another artist at the company. I was going through and like making all the game models and everything, and then someone else come behind me and actually textured them at the time. This has Mordecai from Borderlands 1. Yeah, this is Roland from Borderlands 2. Yeah, no, this is Borderlands 1. Sorry, I get all confused. The funny part is I don't even know their names frequently, because frequently we're just like drawing characters and making stuff, and they don't like actually belong in the story or even exist until afterwards. And actually, some of these characters we even started modeling before we had concepts for it. And then we'd take renders of those, and then the artists would go and like, draw over the tops of them and stuff like that in our game numbers. So, this is, another Borderlands 2 character. This is a demonstration of just what the model looks like compared to the textured version. Now, this one I did actually texture, but that gun was actually my brother. I work with my brother, strangely enough, too. Works in New Jersey, too, but yeah, he makes guns and hard surface stuff. There usually is like a disconnect between those types of artists. I'm like a really poor hard surface model myself. I always think of things as like softer forms, and I always think of the anatomy of things, and I like to build things out like that. And because of it, I prefer to work with ZBrush most of the time too. And so a lot of the hard surface stuff takes me more time as well. But then other people who think in more of a systematic or procedural manner seem to do really, really well with like hard surface and environment and that kind of stuff. But anyways, yeah, so this is another character that, man, we must have redone parts of this guy 5, 6, 7 times. His head completely changed. I don't know if you remember it, you used to look like Scott at one time. Yeah, our art director, like people do that all the time too. If you ever notice your art starts looking like yourself, spend too much time looking in the mirror or whatever, but yeah, a lot of that ends up happening in art. But this guy developed into all kinds of different things. He started out too emo, and we ended up wanting like a superhero Buck Rogers kind of thing. So I ended up actually, we never even had a concept for this head. I ended up borrowing it from, was it animation with Brad Pitt in it, like he's a superhero? What was that called?
If you're ever working on a regular main character for a game with the face on it, get ready because brace yourself.
Yeah.
Because that gets nitpicked and changed and so
yeah.
Don't even that first attempt, you might as well just get something in a ballpark because boy, they're gonna it goes through all.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the hardest part about trying to even put a timeline to anything because the feedback loops change it so much.
Yeah, the time, it's different if you worked in a vacuum versus feedback because that does change a lot of things.
Yeah.
For the better, mind you, because
yeah,
there's changes usually the ones that, sometimes when you're working characters a long time you get kind of blind to certain things.
Oh, yeah.
So I think Borderlands is really unique because it has a very unique art style, and especially as a 3D artist where you're working with graphic that's almost 2D looking. How difficult was it at the early stage to get that, like how did you know what to sculpt, and how did you think about that in like a production pipeline, turning that into a texture, and you weren't texturing that,
Yeah, that was actually something really difficult for even, especially I think myself to adapt to, because I'd come from a more traditional art style sense. I like adding extra detail, and especially if you like look at these characters compared to like what these guys from ID were presenting, there's so much more detail in the things that they did, and because of that, that extra detail, you get extra information, and you can believe that it exists in like a real world that has been weathered and it reacts the way surfaces should, compared to something like this where the art style is actually really dependent on the texture. And what we were finding really early on is that all those details were creating too much noise inside of these things. We're supposed to be reading like more like a comic book or a graphic novel or something. And so even like things like where normal maps would normally carry like information and depth and everything, we end up inking all of those. So we get kind of miserable when we get to the end and we think these look so fantastic, but then we ink them and you lose so much of that information. It ends up just being lines and stuff instead. So a lot of the characters that came out the best in the game, I don't even have examples of here because they really boring looking models. Like they're supposed to be smooth and flat surfaces so that those things can be have interest added instead of the texture.
So if you would have seen the concept for these, it's a super simple concept. So
yeah,
the way Adam would interpret it could be completely different than something I might interpret, which I actually did on the first Borderlands. My stuff stood out horribly because
we've had a constant progression of style.
I just was like thrown in at the end of the project. So it's kind of a matter of like looking at what other character artists are doing and trying to match what they're doing as well.
Yeah, I have to say too, but if you get stylized cartoon stuff, people sometimes don't realize it can be insanely hard. Like you think like, oh, it's simple, but it's not the case.
The goldfish.
Yeah.
Do you know what you guys are looking at right now? This dude modeled the goldfish for the goldfish commercial at Blur, and he always talks about that was like the hardest character to know.
It was this darn goldfish, but it had to be so perfect. I don't know, but anyways, yeah.
No, it's like, especially because this isn't really my natural style. That's the thing that I found to be the hardest. You have to adapt to the style that you're being directed towards, even if it's not what your natural inclination might be. And so like you can really see that even in a lot of the new, if you guys have been watching any new Borderlands stuff coming out, Borderlands 3 stuff, the style has even progressed further more into a stylized, and this guy's been really spearheading most of that stuff, but I think that was where your style kind of sat naturally anyways, right? Yeah, and because of it, it's gotten 100 times better. I think there's always like constant fight in the stuff that I was doing, because my inclination was to take a drawing and try and make it look more realistic, versus trying to make it, accentuate the style or graphic quality of it. So it's just always a back and forth between them. It really is just all about the attitude and tone you want in your games. See, this was one of the examples I was thinking of. This character is as clean as I could possibly imagine. There's nothing to it really, and it's all about texture in here. Because specifically characters, whenever you're trying to do things like ink them and stylize them, there's a lot of things you don't want the extra inks on, and like skin and face tones and stuff like that really get mastered when you start like scribbling all over them. This was one of the first things I actually got to start building out. To actually put extra stuff on them, which I always love stuff. I get kind of teased a little bit about how much I like straps and bolts and nuts and that kind of stuff all over these things. But this was for one of the DLCs we'd done, and there wasn't some of the times that Gearbox really is like almost no direction, which is always my favorite times to do things because literally we're just given like a rough sketch of something, and then we get to do anything we want, and that's whenever we get to really make our own characters or whatever. So. Yeah, this was just, they said we wanted to do a fantasy Borderlands, and so we just said, oh, orcs are cool, let's make our own orcs. And I had one sketch from when our concept artist was duped actually our weapons, but after that then I just built it. And this is an example of how we arrange the different pieces to make variations. That's another thing that really adds on to the timelines for characters, is like the customization to create variations of them. So we have to like export specific masks and textures that we can apply colors over the top of the material to like the great variations where we use different graphic designs or whatever to make it more interesting. That was another Borderlands character, Salvador. This guy was a lot of fun actually. This was one of the few times I think I didn't get a ton of feedback. Just because I don't know if it's because I'm short and stocky, so I related well. Yeah, this is one of the most fun I had on the character, but also like one of the quickest ones I've ever done. This is one of the few times we ever get to make monsters. That's something I talk about with Brett all the time. He's working with Gearbox as well as Kid and everything too. We all love monsters more than probably anything else, characters especially. I've made humans a million times and I'm so done with them, but yeah, usually I always end up sending this stuff to outsourcing or a contract worker. The thought being that typically someone will notice if a human is not exactly the way you would want it to be, or you have certain expectations of how you think a person's face looks and features and proportions, whereas a creature or monster, who can say what a giant rock dragon 6-legged beast thing really looks like, so you can get away with some of that stuff. So typically, if we do something like this, we have to like steal it from outsourcing. This is one of the few things I like to do.
I knew that feeling. I had similar issues with the board with that, where I think sent some monsters out. I mean, it was a sad day.
Yeah.
Too bad, Jason. You're making this the human dude. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, we were just talking about he's doing like pretty much all of ours right now. So like all these guys are like, oh, damn it, with every monster.
But that's the benefit of being a freelancer. I'll talk about that.
This is Zero. He was actually one of my favorite characters to make too. He almost got cut like 12 times. There's this weird, I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess I can understand where it comes from, but I hear constantly like to always show faces on your characters. That's where a character is. Without a face, it's not a character. I don't always believe that. I believe actually a mask or a helmet or something can be as much a character as a person's actual face. I mean, you see that from Halo and Doom, Zero.
Very iconic.
Yeah. I mean, that can be the icon. So, yeah, this was just a cool character that I enjoyed working on as well. I mean, there's some cool posters. I don't get to do a lot of that. Usually, typically just modeling and stuff. And this was just some advertising basically that I was going to do. Yeah, that's it. You guys have any questions or anything?
Coming from a film background with the images and cinematics, did you initially kind of start saying, oh yeah, I want to do this in Rush and these characters, or did you kind of move around with lighting or something?
Yeah, I actually, I went into school for animation. I went to the Art Institute in Orange County. And I plan on doing cinematics, making assets for it. I love characters, I always make characters. And then I graduated from there. Had never made a low poly model. I never actually textured anything. I got my first job without ever texturing anything, which just doesn't happen anymore. So I mean, actually that's right on the website. Follow the link on my name. That's my college portfolio that got me my first job. I don't know how they found it. I didn't know it existed or anything anymore, but yeah, that's all from college. So that's the kind of stuff that at the time was acceptable or would get you a job. Anymore though, it's really changed. At the same time, the tools have changed so much. I get jealous watching new younger people coming in and they just skip all the bullshit that I had to learn how to do.
I remember trying to find a turn on a wireframe, like in Maya, to show like graduating school. You're like, how do I turn the wireframe on to show people? And that was like, if you did that and like had a fancy AO render, like coming out of VFS, I remember like seeing like, you're like, damn, those AO renders are so slick.
I had to pre-render it twice actually. I remember I had to make a material that could render wireframe, and then I had to composite that over the top of it.
Yep. But now you have a kid who's just like, oh, I put it in Unreal for you.
Yeah.
What?
3 clicks. The first time you use ZBrush, I was like, what is this sorcery?
Yeah. That's what led me.
We sound so old right now. Like,
Welcome to the both ways.
That is the funny part.
we didn't have subtools.
Yeah. We are the old people though.
Yeah.
Companies is the weird part. I don't think I'm that old, but like,
Changing the
Yeah, you guys are going to be taking our applications soon.
Yeah.
So nowadays we have like two big name game engines like Unity and Unreal. So when you were working on Borderlands, so how much did they make the engine from scratch up, and how much did it affect the pipeline?
Well, ours had been modified a whole lot, so it made a pretty large difference. It still did the basics the same, but yeah, that was a continual development of it. But it was mostly to support like tools for our level designers and our, different lighting modes that we had for different games. Because realistically, each project you work on, and actually, they might be the one example. It's not happening, but depending on what game you worked on Aliens and Marines, which had completely different lighting and rendering styles than something like Borderlands. So each time it's actually like they take an engine, they got the things they don't want to put in the things that need to change that specific time.
It's pretty common, by the way, for studios. They modify it and what they did.
Was your engine so different from going from Doom to Rage?
Oh, well, yeah, RVs are because it takes is faster. It's like a race car, but inside of it is just a metal cage. Like, they just make something go faster. Like, the tools for an artist, I don't want to nerd any out, but when I first came to my material editor was a notepad.
Yeah, that's
yeah, I was just kind of like, still?
Yeah.
I mean, it's different now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, traditionally, they were like, they can go fast.
Yeah.
Like, without any extras.
Yeah, that's really the advances we've had in the engine. It's probably the ease of use and
yeah, I think that's actually what you're seeing now. That will make the things made faster. And finally realize, like, hold a minute, this takes forever to do things.
What did you do, like, when you were graduating from college that made you stand out?
I just worked harder than anybody else. Like, literally, if you're not in the top 2-3 people in your class, you're gonna have a really hard time finding anybody. So the fact is, I mean, everywhere I go, people talk about wanting to work in games. It's one of the most competitive fields it possibly is, and nothing beats just working your ass off. And that's all it is. Put in the time and the effort.
He's so right. Like, you don't meet people, and don't get scared by that, because it can freak you out. But I've not met anybody in my life. I've seen kids that took years to do it, but if you want to do this, it's going to be time consuming and hard. But if you work your ass off, I don't know one person that didn't work out. I know a few of my friends took a long time, but they worked and worked and worked and worked at it. No one goes into the game industry going like, I just went to school and did this and applied and I got my job. It's just dedication and just wanting to keep improving yourself. So don't get scared by that. That is a reality. But if you put the time in and bust your ass, it will pay off. I know that sounds corny, you've probably heard it before, but it is true. You just got to work really hard. It is competitive.
No, the arrogant people are typically the ones that I saw fall away. And once you get to a point and go like, oh, this is as good as it gets, nobody beats this shit. Those are the guys who end up like falling behind and getting stuck in where they're at. I literally don't think I've ever been a model where at the end of it I wasn't like, God, this is terrible. I wish I could just do like this over again. And it should keep happening your entire career.
All right, guys. Why don't you guys give everybody an applause for these guys? Before I'm going to show a little bit of my portfolio, but I was just going to want to gauge how many portfolios we've got in this room. Okay, so I'm going to do mine really quickly just to show you I can do a little, and then that way we'll set up the tables for portfolios. So, but I wanted to definitely give these guys some props. So I've been in the game industry for about 20 years now. I came from Disney, so I have a lot of traditional background, but I pretty much saw a lot of the stuff that these guys said is just like kind of working, understanding how to, go along with all your art. Adapting and dying is pretty much what I usually say. Because I started as an illustrator, then I went to animation, and then I went into modeling, and then, so I keep adapting to figure out what I need to do to go to the next thing. I was very aware of what I need to be as an artist. So this is just a sculpture. This is rendered in Key Shot. This is one of the characters I did for Dominator. How many of you guys heard of that? No? Okay, what was that competition? I had a full-time job, and then basically after I went home, I basically did the competitions against all the character guys that worked on it. So it was good to gauge of people outside your studio. This was another Dominator piece that I did. This was actually when my son was kind of on the way, so I had a lot of nightmares and stuff, and I was just trying to come up with monsters. This is one of the characters I did for id Software for Rage. Real. He's fat. He wants to stay that large. So it's like this is J.K. Styles from Rage. He's basically just a mutant. This Ben Olsen kind of concepted this character, and then basically I kind of had to flesh out, and I didn't realize I had to do the whole stand and the environment. And he's basically in a space urinal, so I didn't realize that was Ben's humor. He kind of put something in there. He's like, oh, he's stuck, and so then I put some magazines he never got down. He touched. They were all clean compared to everything else was dirty. Try to build on some of the humor that he had for Rage. A lot of people think I just do a lot of death and kind of stuff. I came from Disney, so I pretty much usually say I can do Make It to Death. I jump in a lot of different styles, and being a freelance character guy, I'm lonely. I just work at home, and my dog's driving me crazy. But I have to jump styles a lot. So a lot of games I've touched, like I worked on a character on Paragon. I was dealing with 85,000 polys, and the next thing I'm turning around, I'm working for Lucky's Tales on little cutes and stuff, and it's like. That's the one thing I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, really. I don't know if you heard that. It's very hard to be consistent in style, but I try to be aware of it, and that's a lot of what we were talking about, our traditional background. I've been drawing since I was 4. All that stuff kind of came back in. When I first got in the industry, we were moving vertices around, and it wasn't until like Mudbox and ZBrush, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa! And then I was like, all my traditional came back, and you're like, where did you learn this stuff? Brian brought up some stuff about working in the movies and stuff. I have also done, working for a character in a game is totally different than how you approach it for a movie, and this is for 3D prints. That's a lot of different things, and it's an entirely different approach as well. So these are 4 characters that I kind of I had done by Onage, and they stand about 9 inches tall, and they're resin kits, which is pretty cool that we're able to have something from a digital to your table, you know what I mean? So being a movie, game artist kind of stuff, it's really neat to kind of, you're sort of touching traditional. But I've also been trying to do traditional working in clay and learning how to do that because that's kind of another thing. And,
your fundamentals.
Yeah, it's basically shape. It does suck because like if I do one eye and I really like it, crap, so it's like I have to do another one.
But that in real life sometimes.
Yeah,
something in my mind goes control C. Nope, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work at all. So it's kind of each has its problem, but it also has its rewards. So. This was a character I did for Total War, Warhammer. So he was one of their main characters. This guy was really tall. I think he was about 55,000 polys. But it's still, he had...
Are you serious? They were that high?
Well, this one, he was one of the boss. Maybe a little bit less. But the problem is like I had like 43 skulls on this guy, something like that.
Because me and Brian were talking about that at work. I'm like, man, dude, they got some crazy level detail.
Yeah. I'll have to look at it again, but I swear I don't know if I was wishing I had that or...
No, I believe you because we were just looking at the actual, they didn't have the number, but we're like, man, that looks like a lot of triangles.
This guy was like 30 feet tall, so he was really large. And then also when you do large characters, you got to make sure things are underneath properly too, whatever. So because they walk over top, you can see a lot of stuff. So he was fun to do, the style, but it was very, the time turnaround was pretty difficult. And
how long were you spending on this?
that guy did it in 3 weeks.
Just high poly or everything?
Everything. So, and then I sent it back to them, and then Bosch Sin, she's a really fantastic character guy over there. He had to clean up a little bit of the texture. The problem I have as a freelance guy, I'm not in the engines, and so texturing is very hard to finalize. So I really just like, I want to get it to 80%, and then please tweak, please get into your engine and do it. Because otherwise I'm kind of guesstimating what it's going to be. It's very hard to kind of like, when you're dealing with all these different maps and everything, it's kind of, the style comes into play, but finalizing the environment maps. I mean, I remember in Rage, we had like so many different environments. One character would look fantastic. You get in another environment and blown out because the environment guy just decided to pump up the volume of like the gloom and all of that stuff. So then we had to go back, and some characters we actually had to darken down the texture map to make that character normal. But the problem is, all that texture detail models and stuff had to fit on a disc. So we kind of battled with a lot of the tech back and forth. This character I did for Zebra Summit Sculpt Off last year. It was kind of traumatic, it was stressful, but it was fun because I was going up against tons of badass guys, character guys that I respected, and we had like 3 hours to do this. So we had to do the sculpt, and then the texturing, and then the render, and then be done, and if you didn't get it done by that time, you were out. So, but it was a fun experience.
They would kill you.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I remember just going in, and I was freaking out. I was like, please don't repeat. So yeah,
you guys, I gotta say, like, that is so hard to do. I'm chicken shit at it. They've asked me once or twice, I'm like, man, I'm just afraid of not having, like, I don't know, just being train wrecked so hard.
Yeah.
But it was cool to watch all these guys do that. And this was actually one of the best ones, I gotta say, out of that group. So.
Thank you. No, and I'm doing Zebra Summit in a couple of weeks too, and then they've even kind of found more badass artists. So I'm just hoping to not be 14th place, but just to survive just a little bit. But yeah, I would actually go check out the Zebra Summit sculpt offs and stuff like that. You can actually check out last year's, because it's really neat to actually watch how everybody kind of approaches, and you actually kind of see some of the build-outs and the thinking process and stuff, and it's all videotaped. And they bounce around, and everybody has a different way, and it's using ZBrush. They all are using the same ZBrush, Photoshop, and Keyshot, and everybody kind of has like a little different idea. This is talking about, I love dragons, T-Rexes, all that kind of stuff, dinosaurs. This guy actually, I did a T-Rex to help out Will Nicholson, and he does like a lot of visual effects, and he works in the film, and so he was having like a T-Rex, a little short film outside to he did barbecue out in his backyard, and he grabbed it from Turbo Squid. And I was like, that's a horrible one. Let me go ahead and do it. So I did a T-Rex for him, passed it off to him. Well, then somehow they did the project, so then that T-Rex now was at the museum downtown Dallas, where the one you can actually race against it. So, and I didn't know that. I was like, oh. He's like,
so that was your.
That was my T-Rex.
Oh, I've seen that thing before.
I brought my son. He was like, I've raced the shit out of that. I never would. But because Q, who's an animator from Disney, and Will kind of put together, it was like a collaborative kind of stuff, and then it's like 40 feet, and you run against it. It's pretty neat. But I took that T-Rex, and then I was like, you know what? And actually, Brian kind of inspired me. He does these awesome. I was kind of like, I like a lot of that 3D concepting painting over. So I just started sculpting a dragon. That's what this guy turned out to be. And I was just playing around with shapes, and I did that. And then I decided, well, you know what? I really want to love Game of Thrones. So I was like, I love the little dragons. I was like, I'm going to make my own little, taxidermy heads and stuff like that. So that's where I did this guy. But I changed a lot of the detail because of how I was going to print it out. I wanted it to be large, and I wanted to have broken parts. So this is actually the final 3D print. And he's about cat size. So, and then now I'm kind of trying to learn how to do casting, and I realized casting doesn't really like spikes. So I'm doing, my next monster is going to be a blob. To make it easy, because all this stuff, traditional stuff, is just the talent and the expertise that goes into this is just mind-blowing. But I honestly, as an artist, I like to joke around and try different things, and of course, meet other people doing this. This is the textured version of the character in game, and I wish I had the quality count. So but I didn't put it onto it. So that's what they finalized. So as you can see right there, a lot of these skulls, usually I would do like a trick where there'd be alphas, but he's so large, every one of these skulls, and they were broken up and changed and different. So like this right here, like tons of skulls in the background mixed together. All those had to be done on low poly. It was insane. So this was the early character that you guys saw for Dominator. This is actually 10,000 polys. We had limits.
Yeah, you remember those days?
Yeah. It was like,
Didn't see those that long ago.
it wasn't long. So everybody knows. You guys know what alphas are? Okay, so pretty much like how we had to trick this out is like I made this chain as an alpha plane. I made like these little things on the side alpha plane. His wrap around here alpha planes. The smoke alpha plane. I mean, it's just like just because my poly count was limited, I had to think how can I approach that and still keep the silhouette, which is key. Like if you have where you move it around, it's like you got all these broken edges and stuff. It's just not really. So it's kind of like the magic. I'm kind of anal when it comes to low poly. I'm very much old school. I look at the silhouettes, I break down. I'm about edges. And a great thing to do is to throw a black material on top of it and throw it against a light background and look around and look for those things. Because you're trying to make it look like millions of polys. You're trying to make it look like this high poly. It's a challenge. Not everybody does it. But being, like I said, being freelance, when I usually get hired, they ask me to do concept all the way to final in game, and it changes, and I have to be somewhat proficient enough to get hired again. So we're trying to, and I think that's it. I did have one other shot. I did work at id Software on Doom 4 for quite a while. Then Jason came in, and I never had a chance to work with Brian, but I had a lot of fun, and we went through a lot of different styles and everything like that through the process. But as we were jumping, because Doom was such a major baby to him that it became kind of like what they wanted to represent well. And these guys finished it out beautifully. So
We had some dark days, but we got through them.
yeah, it was stressful for sure. And that's the thing is just like but you know, you get a chance. I gotta say, I missed working with a group of guys that you can actually come in and you kind of get a chance to talk to them because my dogs know shit on techniques. I've asked them plenty of times. They just bark at me and want food. So, but all right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to get the class set up for portfolios. I'm probably going to just have two groups, two tables just come up. Supposedly there's going to be a VR thing at noon, so we'll try to make it. Please be respectful. Like we're probably going to do about 5 minutes, and we have a little bit extra time. You can always catch these guys in chat. Traditional portfolios, please, or on your phones. There's not going to be a computer provided. We're not going to pull up the USB. This is part of the thing I wanted you guys to be prepared for. And also, when you kind of go later to the London era or you're walking around and talking, having something there you can pull quickly and show somebody your work is key, okay? Because if you don't, you can kind of say, I'm an artist. You know, my mom likes my stuff. Well, everything. So I try to...
my work.
Yeah. She's
not happy.
Yeah, she does. Well, I've done some pieces my mom doesn't like doing. But it's... So I just want to help you guys out, and definitely please be respectful and take down some notes. If someone, you can see the caliber that we brought into this room, so respect them and take their advice and don't waste their time. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Give us about 10 minutes and we'll wrap it up.